Hi everyone, this is our channel, Meet the Real Story. Please like, share and subscribe.
One of the best feelings in the world for any woman is being a mother. To have someone love you for who you are, for just being you, and expect nothing in return. You're the heroine of their story. You become everything they ever dreamed, and you'd give anything to see a smile on their face. I'm proud to say that I'm a mother to 50 kids. I know that's a lot, but let me tell you the story. I'm Susan, 20 years old. I come from a very rich family. My dad's Stefan Heiss, a very famous businessman. Yes, the owner of Heiss Cars Industry. My mom's Elena. She comes from a very rich family in Sweden. She married my dad and they built their life from scratch. I loved kids, ever since I was a kid. Sometimes I feel like they're walking cotton candy. Their laughs, their mischief. All the kids in our family loved me, and I loved them. Even my aunt said that I'd make a great mother someday. So did Henry. Henry was my childhood friend. We grew up together. We had the same interests, same hobbies. We even thought alike. We got married and started our life together. We were young, but our dreams were big. I was thrilled when I found out that I was pregnant, and Henry was so happy he couldn't believe it. He did everything he could to help me relax. He couldn't wait to be a father, but destiny had something else in store for us. We had just arrived from Sweden. Henry had a problem at work. He was talking on the phone while driving at high speed on a dangerous road. I tried to tell him to watch the road, but it was too late. A truck came out of nowhere and pushed our car off the side. We fell into the lake, and we were unconscious. When I woke up, I found my mother and Henry's mother both looking at me, trying their best not to cry, and I soon found out why. In order to save my life, they put me through an operation. Not only have I lost my child, but I won't be able to have one ever again. Henry was also bruised, but my wounds ran way deeper. That was it, and I could never forgive him. If it weren't for him, none of this would have happened, I thought. None of it. I got a divorce later, after Henry tried over and over and over to fix the situation, to apologize, to ask for a second chance. But all I saw were empty words. There was no second chance. I tried to keep myself busy, find a way to invest my money and time, trying to get my mind off the accident. I decided to open up a toy store. I wanted to bring joy to all the children. One day, as I was standing in my store, I glimpsed a small boy standing out front, looking at a toy. The boy was alone, about 8 years old, but that wasn't all. His clothes were patched up and looked more like rags. His face and hands were dirty, and he just stood there, looking at the doll, daydreaming. I found myself walking out to him, but when he saw me coming, he ran away. A few days passed, and that boy's gaze was all I thought of. Then, one day, I found him outside the store again, looking at a different toy. I moved towards him slowly this time, till I was right beside him. Then I said, "Do you like it?" The boy freaked out and tried to run again, but I caught his arm this time and said, "Don't be afraid. I'm Susan." The boy looked at me, terrified, and I smiled. He started to relax. He told me his name was Billy, and that he was 7, and that he lives nearby. When I asked him about his parents, he said he never knew them, that he lived with Uncle Max. I asked him who Uncle Max was, but he cast his eyes down and was nervous all of a sudden. He looked a bit scared. I got curious, so I took him home with me, let him shower, and prepared a hot meal. I told him that I'd take him home after he'd eaten. I asked him about where he lived. He was quiet for a second. Then he said he had to go, that his brothers and sisters were waiting for him. I asked him how many he had. "Around 50, he said. I was shocked. He told me that they all lived in a big room with Uncle Max. "But how is this Uncle Max able to look after you all?" I asked curiously. But he got nervous again, and he insisted that he must leave, so I decided to take him there. Maybe it'll help clear some of the mystery, I thought. I drove, and Billy was guiding the way, until we got there. The place was a bit far from all the other houses. It looked more like a dump, with some sort of shack built on it. A man was standing in front of the door, holding a kid by the arm and beating him senseless. The boy was younger than Billy. and Billy was shaking next to me, mumbling to himself. He's gonna hit me too. I'm so late. Then he turned to me and said, Bye, Susan. You have to leave now, quickly. And then he ran towards the shack. I backed up the car and stood nearby to see what happens. The man hit him hard across the face, and I heard him say, Where's the money you stole today, boy? Billy turned out his empty pockets, and the man dragged him inside by the collar. I wanted to help, so I decided to call Henry, who was more than happy to answer my call. I told him what had happened, and he came to me. We approached the shack together slowly and looked through the window. A lot of children, ages from 3 to 7. The place was a real dump. The man was sitting at a table. It had food and drink. Billy was dragging a heavy sack on the floor, and another kid was carrying a cup to bring to the man, who snatched it out of the boy's hand. Then he got up and started waking the rest of the kids, telling them to get out there and bring him money, that they would face a real nightmare if they didn't. I wanted to barge in, but Henry stopped me. He called the police instead. The police came quickly, and they caught the man. Apparently, he kidnapped these children from parks and surrounding areas, so they could steal for him, and he would starve them and beat them. The police didn't know what to do with all the children, and I felt like this was my second chance. I told the police that I would build a home big enough, and I would take them all in, to give them the care and love that they deserve. And that is how I became a mother to 50 kids.
Hi there, I'm Carl and I'm 19 years old. I live with my grandpa on his farm on the outskirts of the city. Grandpa is fond of nature and quietude, as these calm his soul and spirit. He loves cultivating flowers and is very skilled in this field. He reads numerous books on unusual species of flowers, including their planting and growing requirements. He can also extract perfume fragrances from flowers. At first, I didn't care about this hobby of his and viewed it as a waste of time. However, after talking with him many times at length and listening to his myriad descriptions of the beauty of nature and flowers, I became hooked on them myself. Now I am as passionate as he is about them, and I love to study and learn about exotic and rare flowers. One of Grandpa's friends happened to be a botanist. He could talk for hours about rare flowers, even imaginary ones depicted in science fiction movies. One evening after he had visited our home and left, we went into the kitchen to prepare dinner when suddenly there came a knock at our front door. I answered the door, but no one was there. Nothing save a small box with a card, which I dutifully carried to Grandpa. The card said simply, "A gift from a dear friend." So we opened the box to find some strange seeds that were unlike any that Grandpa had ever seen before. He read another part of the note. "This is a Yasni flower from the future. Get ready for a fantastical, unforgettable trip." We didn't really believe this silly message, but we decided, what the heck, let's plant them and see what happens. In just 3 days, the seeds had produced exotic-looking purple flowers. Grandpa plucked one to extract some perfume from it. It had a wonderfully fragrant smell. Suddenly, I felt enervated and listless. My vision blurred, I couldn't breathe, and I became dizzy and passed out. When I opened my eyes, I was in the middle of some unknown desert. There were unfamiliar-looking parked cars with people in unfamiliar-looking clothes. One of the strangers pointed at me in alarm and shouted, "Catch him!" I ran, but they surrounded me and caught me. They bound my hands and hung me from a horizontal tent frame. I heard a groan and looked to my left to see Grandpa, similarly bound and hanging from another tent frame. The strangers were speaking in a language I had never heard before. Their apparent leader came over to us and said, "See this desert? The entire world is like this. Because of you. You destroyed our world. Our future is dark and bleak now. Those Yasni flowers you planted ended up breeding out of control and destroyed the world. You need to pay for your foul deeds." Suddenly, I heard a gunshot. Someone had shot Grandpa in the chest. He was bleeding profusely and appeared to be unconscious or dead. I couldn't tell which. I screamed, and then the shooter came towards me with hatred blazing in his eyes. He stopped and placed his gun barrel to my forehead. I screamed, "No!" and closed my eyes tightly. After a pause and hearing no shot, I opened my eyes to find myself lying on the floor beside Grandpa, the plucked flower lying between us. I woke him up and told him about my dream and found that he had had the exact same dream. He called his botanist friend and described the seeds, the flower, and its fragrance to him. The botanist said the unknown flower sounded similar to one that grew high in the Swiss Alps. It was illegal to import because it was known to induce hallucinations and cause other unpredictable reactions in people. To this day, we have no idea who the dear friend was that sent us these unusual hallucinogenic flowers. We figure it must have been someone's idea of a practical joke. Or were these Yasni flowers indeed sent to us from the future? My name is Carl, and I'm 15 years old. I used to be the team leader of the school's basketball team, and I was proclaimed the best player on the team for the past 2 years. Unfortunately, I developed a bad leg infection and had to quit playing, so I became the team's coach instead. A player named Frank assumed the team leader position when I transitioned to the coach position. He and I were not on good terms. In fact, we were downright enemies. Our team, which had won many championships in the past, began losing games under Frank's leadership because he refused to follow my guidance. Some team members requested that I rejoin the team, but I told them that my leg hadn't healed yet. I was still undergoing physical therapy to regain my leg's strength. After a few months, I was well enough to start joining the team's practice sessions. The team players all hugged me and were glad to see me getting back into shape to rejoin the team. Except for Frank, that is. Frank was not pleased at all. I saw the hatred in his eyes when he realized I was going to come back and take the team leader position again. He said that I'd been off the team too long to be allowed to return to it as a team leader again. I told him that my infection was something that was beyond my control. He reminded me that there was a school tradition that one could challenge another for the team leader position by a show of bravery, which was to jump from a cliff into a lake below. So he challenged me to make that jump. If I could do it, then he would gladly relinquish his team leader position to me and give me $1,000 to boot. He was so confident because he knew that I had a fear of heights. He also knew that if I didn't accept his challenge, then I would be in an untenable position as far as all the team members were concerned, so I had no choice but to accept his challenge. He scheduled the challenge date and invited the team to watch the challenge. I was terrified, but it was now a matter of pride and dignity and a test of my mettle. My reputation was at stake. I arrived at the lake first, then the team members one by one, and then Frank arrived last. He handed the money to one of the players and said that if I couldn't make the jump, then he, Frank, would keep the money and remain the team leader. I went up to the top of the cliff and looked down. I had a moment of vertigo. I thought of backing out, but I heard the team chanting my name over and over and knew that I couldn't let them down. Their support emboldened me, and my fear lessened. I closed my eyes, screwed up my courage, and jumped. I had a feeling of having wings and flying through the air. It was only the blink of an eye before I crashed into the water feet first and went deep. Amazed that I had survived the jump, I began swimming rapidly upwards. When my head broke the surface, I enjoyed the delicious sight of incredulity on Frank's face. So I won the challenge, collected Frank's money, and was reinstituted as a team leader. The team's support gave me the courage to face my phobia and overcome my fear.
Hello, my name is Andrew and I'm 17 years old. Playing tennis has been my great passion since I was a kid. Focus, stamina, and fast reaction times are key requirements of this game. I began playing tennis in primary school, and on my way to the top, I have faced some strong players, some of whom were older than me, but I beat them nevertheless. As I grew up and became more proficient, my ambition grew stronger too. My desired dream was to win the Grand Slam Championship and revel in the applause and cheering. I entered the national championship and reached the final match, which was to be played against a strong player. If he were to win the match, his next step would be the Olympics, so I intended to beat him at any cost. The problem was that he was more skilled than me. Fortunately, I believe that the end justifies the means, so I made a deal with one of his training crew members to put an anesthetic in his water bottle. As they say, money talks and makes all things possible. I'm not evil, I'm just pursuing my dreams by the most direct route possible. In the first half of the match, his powerful smashes allowed him to dominate the game. It was a pretty one-sided match. During the break, however, he drank some of the drugged water and suddenly felt very fatigued. The referee noticed his fatigue and asked him if he wanted to forfeit the game, but he refused. Needless to say, I dominated the second half of the match and won rather easily, to everyone's amazement. I was later nominated for the world title. I won many easy matches in the beginning, but in the semifinals, I was matched with a player who was even stronger than the one I had beaten in the national championship. Once again, I put my devious scheme in motion and bribed one of his crew members with a hefty sum of money. Once again, I was the disadvantaged player in the first half of the match. Then during the break, my opponent drank the drugged water from his bottle. As expected, I dominated the second half of the match. Just as I had taken the lead in the match, the referee stopped the game and directed 2 security guards to arrest me. Some security cameras had recorded the bribed individual drugging my rival's water bottle. The authorities had confronted my partner in crime, and he had confessed and turned me in. Consequently, I was disqualified from the match. As they say in sports, you win some, you lose some.